Hillary,
Hi, everyone. Oh, hello?
give it just a minute because it takes people a minute to log on.
Okay.
So give everyone just a minute to log on, and then you can get started. I'll give you a sign because I can see how many people are logged on.
Can y'all completely see my screen, or is it just the PowerPoint?
We see the PowerPoint.
Okay, good. Okay.
Oh, wait, we see like the internet.
Yeah, we can see everything.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to put it in present mode.
Yep, that'd be great. Give it another like minute or so because there's still people logging on.
Vacuum cleaner's done now, by the way.
Okay,
good.
Danielle, is there anything that you wanted to say at the beginning, like with the other webinars?
We can do that at the end.
Okay.
All right. It looks like there's a decent amount. People may still log on, but if you want to get started.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great evening wherever you may be. My name is Hillary Wong, and I'm ASDA District 1's Predental Advisory Committee co-chair. And this year, District 1 Predental Advisory Committee has worked really hard to put on this webinar together, and we can't wait to share with you what we have today. So tonight, I'll be introducing our three wonderful panelists. First off, we have Rob Morin. He's a second year at the University of Connecticut School of Dental Medicine. He was born and raised in Connecticut and is a proud UConn graduate. He is really excited to be part of a close-knit school community and looks forward to helping all pre-dental students with their personal statements. Next up, we have Sarah Ferguson, who is a third-year student at the University of Michigan College of Dental Medicine. She is a development for her New England ASDA and was a past conference call for District 1 Medicine. Sarah was a this year and is happy to share any advice. During her free time, she runs, plays with dogs, and tries new foods and restaurants. Fun fact, rumor has it that Portland, Maine has more restaurants per capita of any city in the U.S. except San Francisco. And last, we have Ari Choi, who is currently a second-year dental student at Tufts University School of Medicine. She is the ASDA representative for her D2 class and the fundraising chair of ASDA District 1. She is a non-traditional student compared to her classmates because she worked for a few years and completed a master's in medical sciences before starting dental school. She is very grateful to be where she is now and is excited to share with everyone her journey to dental school. During her downtime, she loves to run and to play with her two dogs, Hero and Doobie. So let's get on to the presentation.
Rob?
Hope you guys like my kitten. I named him Shabazz after Shabazz Napier, the UConn basketball player. And Sarah and Ari both had dogs, so I thought I would be different and put my cat on there.
Yeah, so that intro said most of the things you could say about me. I know there's some background noise, but I'm a third-year student at UNE, and that's a picture of my dog, Rudy.
Hi, I'm Ari, and I'm a second-year student at Tufts Dental School, Tufts School of Dental Medicine. In that picture, that's Hero. He is my pride and joy, aside from my other dog who my fiance has in Louisiana. But I have Hero with me, and he has helped me tremendously in coping with the daily stresses of dental school.
Okay, so I guess I have the floor. I'm sure you guys want to hear what's important, and I'll try to keep my blabbering on to a minimum. I have one slide based off of what my Dean of Admissions, who's Dr. Donna Paolela, she's very helpful, very nice, was excited to share for this. I have one slide based off of what she has told me that she wants to share with you guys as pre-dental applicants, and then I'll have another slide based off of like what I think from when I applied. Take what I say with a grain of salt and make sure you listen to her, because obviously her opinion matters more when she decides who gets into school. But I can start with what she has said. So right there on the top line, it says it's a very important part of the application. She wanted me to stress that to everybody, that there is no right or wrong answer. I think what she means by that is everybody's unique in their own way, and you don't want to be worrying about what somebody else might be writing in their personal statement. If it's a completely different experience than you had, then you got to go with what you've had in terms of experiences. And so write about your path and what's the most important to you. So you may have volunteered a bunch with dental related activities, but if it's not what's important to you and it's not something you feel you can write passionately about, don't try to make your personal statement out of something that you're not passionate about. If there's something you've done that you may think not be related to dentistry at all, make sure you write about that because you're passionate about it, and they're going to be able to see that when you write a personal statement. And it's a chance to express to the committee why you want to become a dentist. I know these all sound pretty self-explanatory, but I feel like it's really worth it for you guys to see that there really aren't that many points on that slide, and that personal statements can seem a little daunting and they can seem like they're complicated and stressful, but it really is as simple as using your experiences that you've had between when you figured out you wanted to become a dentist and now, or as you were in the process of figuring out you wanted to become a dentist. Use those experiences to try to really explain to the committee why you want to become a dentist. It really is, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, if that makes sense. It's simple in the sense that you really don't need to overthink it, but it can be difficult to really feel like you're doing something that you can be proud of. You can go to the next slide. Nice and fast. So some of this advice is from me, and other things I know that Dr. Palillo would definitely agree with me. One sort of disclaimer, I'm certainly not authority on the subject, and she is. But I think what's really important that we would both agree on, and I bet the other panelists would too, is find a trusted few people to help you. Nobody's going to know how to write a personal statement well by themselves, so there's always, hopefully you guys at your undergrads have a pre-dental advisor, a pre-health advisor who would help you with this process, be able to go over a draft with you, kind of hone in on what are important or good subjects to talk about. But I said a trusted few. And the reason I said that is because if you ask 20 different people to proofread your personal statement and give you advice on it, you'll get 20 different answers and you'll be pulled in 20 different directions, and you could spend an entire year writing it, and you'll just bounce an idea off this person and that person. They'll tell you to change this, change that. So if you have a pre-health advisor that you have a good relationship, or a professor, or maybe a dentist that you shadow, those are 3 people that would be pretty good to ask, maybe a parent or a close friend or a sibling or a significant other to kind of give you some feedback to. But don't make that circle too big, because you guys will be hearing a lot of different things. I had, I think, just the pre-health advisor and a dentist look at it for content, and then one of my parents to proofread it for actual proofreading. And that's the next thing on there. Dr. P wanted to stress that it looks very, 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 very unprofessional if you have an error in it. And when you're writing it and you're spending a lot of time with your eyes on the screen, it can be easy for you to miss some things. I'm sure you guys have all seen an email that you sent after the fact that has errors in it, because it's hard to see. So stress to some people when you're asking them, oh, could you give me some advice on the content? Like, you think this is a good subject? You think I'm portraying this, what I've done or how I feel correctly? But then specify when you want them to proofread it for, is there a comma where there shouldn't be? Are there anything that's misspelled incorrectly? Because it is really important that the application is the only chance that you have to show the school, okay, this is who I am. And if there's a mistake on there that could have easily been fixed by taking an extra 2 seconds to look at it, it shows that you're not professional or taking it seriously. So not saying any of you will put anything in there that hasn't been proofread, but it is important to make sure that you go through those steps. The next bullet I think is a really important one, at least for me, is don't force it. So you guys have to be honest with yourselves and look at the experiences that you've had, and not try to make something out of nothing. So by that, I mean, not everybody has taken significant time off between college and when they're entering dental school to do some great volunteer work. Not everybody has had a first career and they're making a career change. Not everybody has come from a really tough home situation and overcome a lot of obstacles. You guys got to realize that there are thousands of people who get into dental school every year who went to 4 years of college, did the standard volunteering, got pretty decent grades, did pretty well on the DAT, and just want to be dentists, and they're going to get in and they're going to be fine. You don't have to have some sort of I cured cancer or helped build a village in a third world country type story. If you do, that's obviously great, and how it relates to you wanting to become a dentist is a fantastic subject for your personal statement. I don't want anybody to think they shouldn't write about those things, but I want to stress to you guys that not everybody has a story like that, and you really don't need to have that in your personal statement. At least in my opinion, I didn't think my personal statement was all that unique or all that good, and I was fine. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses to their application. So for instance, my GPA wasn't as strong as it could have been, but I feel like I had a really good amount of extracurricular activities and personal letters and DAT to make up for that. And so I would say the personal statement was another weaker leg of my application. I obviously proofread it and made sure that I sounded like I was a sociable person who was going into dentistry for the right reasons, but I didn't have any crazy stories to share. And that kind of ties into the last bullet I have, which is don't sweat it. I really don't believe that a personal statement is going to make a huge difference in your application. It can definitely help if you have something really nice to write about and you do a good job writing about it. It really can boost you and make the committee take a second look at you. Dr. Paola has said that she has cried after reading some people's personal statements because they were so touching, and I'm sure that was not mine, but that's okay. It didn't have to be. But if you have something good, make sure that you really work hard on tailoring or trying to portray to the committee that what you were going through and that experience that you had really solidified and reaffirmed your choice to enter dental school. Because that's the whole point of the statement. It's not to describe this or reiterate my resume. The point is to use an experience that actually helped make the decision for you. This is why I wanted to be a dentist. So for instance, I didn't have anything special. I was volunteering at Connecticut Mission of Mercy, which is like a large clinic for underserved patients. And I talked to a woman who was a waitress and a single mom, and she was not able to smile when she was working. And she had been to the clinic the previous year and was ranting and raving about how going there and getting her smile fixed completely changed her life. She was more self-confident at work. She was smiling. Her tips increased a bunch, and she was able to buy a lot of really nice toys for her kids for Christmas for the first time in many years. So that's not me going to a third world country and building a school. That's not me curing cancer. That's just one experience I had volunteering, and that was the subject of my personal statement. And I didn't talk about myself too much. I didn't talk about other unrelated things on my resume. I just had that one simple experience, tried to write well about it and use it to prove why I wanted to become a dentist, and I just went from there and it was fine. So don't sweat it is another big thing I would say. If you have any questions, I think we're going to take questions at the end. I'm sure that the other panelists are going to give you a lot better advice than I am. I just want to let you guys know that you really don't need to worry about it. Make sure you take it seriously. Make sure that you're trying to sound like you're going into dentistry for the right reasons, and don't lie in your personal statement. So this is kind of a way people weed out, or schools weed out people who are going into dentistry for the wrong reasons. If you write a statement saying, oh, I want to make a lot of money and play golf every Thursday and Friday afternoon, like they're going to toss it in the trash, as they should. So like, just don't take it seriously. Make sure you're proofreading and make sure you're putting the best foot forward, but really don't worry too much about it. It's not gonna, unless you are doing something very wrong, it's not gonna make or break your application. It can only really help you if you have a good one. So I think questions are at the end, but if you guys wanted to write down my email, if you ever had any questions about the personal statement in general, or if you had questions about UConn and the admissions process there, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to answer anything. And I'm going to hand it off to the two more qualified panelists so they can help you out. Thank you for listening to me.
All right, so I hate to just read off of this slide, but there's a lot of words on here, and this is what I actually got from UNE's Director of Admissions. So again, I know that Rob just talked about this, but proofreading to him was another really huge, important piece of personal statement writing. So he said, this is the first time that the committee's getting a chance to really find out about you. So if you make a lot of just like simple spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, it's really going to stick out like a sore thumb, and you're probably going to get put in a no pile pretty quickly from something like that. He said if there are any holes in your application, you want to acknowledge them head on. Don't deflect blame for something that's like bad on your application, and you might want to use that as a time to talk about that. Another thing that they look at is, you know, say you're going on and on about an experience that you had and they look at your application and you didn't actually list that as something that you did. They might take it as that you were lying about that experience. So definitely make sure that your personal statement lines up with what your application actually says you've done for extracurriculars, volunteering experiences, jobs, anything like that. You know, if it's important enough for you to talk about in your personal statement, it should probably be on your listed on your application as something that you've done. And then lastly, and this was one that he really emphasized to me and was really important. So most schools you apply to are going to have a supplemental application. So I know that this talk is supposed to be about personal statements, but he said that this is a part of your application you're really, really going to want to take the time on, because this is going to let the school know if you're a good fit for them too. So each school has a little bit different mission and vision of what kind of students they want to have at their school. So definitely take time working on the supplemental applications. If you speed through it and just kind of write a basic response and don't put a lot of thought into it, they might think that you're not actually interested in that school specifically, that you're just trying to get into any dental school. So that was our director of admissions, Isaac Stickney's advice for you guys. So quick one. And then my advice. So I'm actually a student interviewer at UNE. So I know that something that is difficult when I'm interviewing is when I ask somebody a question and they just use it as time to kind of go over everything that they put on the resume or CV. So your resume and your CV are what got you to that point already, and you don't want to just kind of go over that stuff again. The committee already has all that information from you, from your application. So same thing, don't do that with your personal statement either. You want to use it as a time for the committee or who's ever reading your application to get to know you. Based off your resume and your grades and your DAT score, things like that, they already know whether or not you're qualified to be at the school or not. Your personal statement's basically going to be, do we like you and are you going to get an interview at the school? So definitely spend time on it. So how do you avoid just reiterating and going over your CV? My recommendation would be to use any personal stories that will show any positive character traits, maybe some growth that you had during undergrad or something that you learned. Also, definitely don't be afraid to bring up hiccups in your application. It's a good time to explain something. Like, for example, if your GPA wasn't strong on a specific semester and you maybe had some health problems or something else going on that kind of resulted in that poor GPA that one semester, you can use that and turn it into something positive. Definitely don't be afraid to talk about a weak spot in your application in your personal statement, as long as you can turn it into something positive. And then my last piece of advice is don't be afraid to let others read and edit your personal statement. I'm really shy when it comes to letting people read my personal statement. So I actually applied to dental school twice. And my first time, I don't know if I let a single soul look at my personal statement. And then the second time through, I was having friends, family, our pre-health advisors, anybody that could and would give me advice on reading it. I let everybody, and it apparently worked out for me because I'm sitting here talking to all of you about this now. So I actually don't really have anything else to add. Rob and I hit on some similar points. So if you guys have any questions for me at all, same thing, my email address is on there. And I also put in the link for University of New England's admissions page, which has some information specifically about the school. I know this is kind of supposed to be specifically about the New England schools. So University of New England is really big on public health. Our mission is to improve the oral health of the northern New England states. So public health is something that wouldn't hurt to throw into your personal statement and your supplemental applications.
Ari, I think you're muted.
Okay, there. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some pieces of advice from our associate director of admissions at Tufts. Some of the main points she hit on was it was very similar to what Rob and Sarah said. I know for personal statements, there's only so much you can do, but you are trying to get into dental school, so that's the main point you want to hit on. She said, don't be afraid to geek out. Tell your story on why you want to be a dentist. What brought you to like the dental field? There's no cookie cutter answer for that. They want a personal story. They don't want like ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a dentist. Like if you have that as your explanation, that's fine, but you need to be very thorough on why. And so just basically show your voice in your essay and make sure that your story flows. They want to know your story. So just make sure like you're everything like you write in your personal statement, that there's a good smooth transition and it paints a picture for whoever's reading your personal statement. Another thing that she touched up on was areas of application that needed to be explained further. So we do have a supplemental application like most schools, and they will ask you like very school specific questions, but there are usually very common questions they ask. One of the questions they asked for Tufts is what difficulties did you face? Like why, like if there's any weaknesses in your application, like can you explain why, and like what situation arise to put you in that position. So your personal statement can be used, to explain that further, because they're only allotted a certain amount of words to explain or answer the question. So this is your chance to, weave your story on what brought you to this difficult situation, what you got out of it, and what brought you to where you are at, like when you're writing this personal statement. A common bullet point for all three schools and all schools is proofread like crazy. You want to make sure that you don't have any spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes, because being a dentist, you're going to be very detail oriented, and that's just something that you don't want to overlook. It looks unprofessional, and if you don't have any typos, they'll realize you took it seriously. And then a nice tidbit she gave was that Tufts loves community service. So having that, the over 200 hours of community service hours, they really look at that and they really admire applicants who have that on their application. So some personal statement advice from me. So I know this is redundant, but basically after you write your personal statement, you want other people to read it. You want them to see, not just for grammatical issues and for, like spelling issues, but you wanted to see if it does paint a holistic picture of why you want to go to dental school. Because the thing is, once you work, like a lot of people I know, they shadow dentists and, they work for a dentist. So you kind of get sunken into that dental school hole. So like you really like focus on one thing, like maybe when you worked in a dental office, like there was one situation and maybe you end up talking about that the whole entire time in your essay. So you don't want that to happen. So you want someone to read like your personal statement and see if like they can get the whole picture on why you want to be a dentist. Like for me, I kind of had that issue with my personal statement. Like when I was a kid, like I was in the 7th grade and basically I had a talon cusp and it broke off, and then the tooth got infected and I needed a root canal. And so I kind of like focused on that way too much. So I let my fiance read it, and he has nothing, like he's not in the dental field at all. And he was just like, you need to like kind of talk about some other stuff, you can't just focus on that. So it's good to have other people to like read your personal statement and just to get a good holistic picture. Next bullet point is don't tell them what you think they want to hear. This is kind of redundant as well. You just tell them why, like be honest. Don't tell them what you think they want to hear. Just if you want to be a dentist, and if you want to be a dentist for the right reasons, obviously dentists make a lot of money. You need to like make sure that like don't say, well, obviously if you were to apply to dental school to want to be a dentist, it has to be because you want to help people, and just make sure you tell your story on that. the next bullet point goes with the one I just said. Don't be afraid to be yourself. So I know like when you initially like write your paper, there's going to be a lot of typos and stuff, but I think like when you write your personal statement the first time, you should just not even think about that. Just make an outline on what you want to say and then go ahead and like write your story. But then of course, like later you can edit it to make it sound more professional. So that's what my other piece of advice. And then lastly, get anyone and everyone to edit your personal statement. You want everyone, like the dentist you work for, your mom, your dad, your best friend, just get everyone to read your personal statement. Because the thing is, the more people read it and give you feedback, the better your personal statement is going to be. And like Rob mentioned before, your personal statement, it's not going to like hurt you severely if it's not like the best piece of writing, but you know, it will definitely like boost your application if you can make it sound good and like basically paint a story that is not on your resume. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email address is down there. So just email me or Facebook me. I'm under Erie Choi as well. And now for questions.
Danielle, do you want to take over?
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to move the question. Okay. So first question is, should we talk about our volunteer work in our personal statement, or should we leave that for the other sections in the application and focus on why we want to become a dentist?
For me, I think that you should, I mean, at Tufts, they did ask us about our volunteering. So I would leave it out of my personal statement unless there's a very specific story that moved you and made you want to pursue dentistry.
Sarah or Robert, you guys have anything to add?
I agree with Ari in terms of you want to be writing about what makes you want to become a dentist. So for me, it just so happened to be an experience I had volunteering. So I would not use, like they both said, don't use the personal statement to kind of talk about your volunteering, because you get other chances to do that. They'll see it on your application and they will ask you about it if they need to know. Don't write about it just for the sake of using it as a chance to discuss it. But definitely if you had a situation like mine where an experience while you were volunteering really solidified your choice to go into the field, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Just make sure that you're not using it as a chance to talk about outside when it's the chance to talk about it, if that makes sense. But if it works for you, it works for you. There's no wrong answer as long as it's really the reason you want to go in.
Okay. Next question is, how can you explain low GPAs if it's not due to health-related or family problems, and instead it's just a subject that you are not good at?
So it's up to you if you want to do it in your personal statement. Everybody has different ways if they want to do that or not. I can talk about how to explain this in general because I had a CN Orgo 2, and I had one semester where my GPA wasn't that good, and everybody asked about it at every interview. The best way for you to explain that, I don't know if you want to do it in your personal statement or not, is to just be honest and it is not anybody else's fault. It is only your fault. So a good answer would be like, I wasn't managing my time properly. I underestimated the difficulty of the coursework, and I relied on study habits that had worked in the past, but it was a nice wake-up call for me to realize that they didn't work and I need to adjust. And I'm really happy that I went through the experience of not doing as well as I had in the past, because it was a chance for me to grow and adapt and kind of figure out a different way to succeed in school. It's not, oh, well, a lot of people didn't do well in that class because there was something wrong with the professor. It wasn't, oh, I was just really busy because I was volunteering a lot. Everybody volunteers a lot. Everybody has professors who suck. A lot of people have part-time jobs too, so I wouldn't blame it on that unless you have a child and you work 50 hours a week in addition to going to school. Having a 15-hour week job is not an extenuating circumstance. Take full responsibility for it and just let them know, hey, I was wrong. I effectively prepare for the material, and I paid the price, but I'm glad that I did because it showed me that I need to be always finding a better way to do things. So whether you want that to be in your personal statement is up to you, but if and when you get asked about it, definitely take full responsibility and you'll be fine. Every single time that I was asked that and I gave the answer similar to what I just told you, the interviewers told me they appreciated that that was my answer. So that was turning a negative into a positive. So you can turn it into a positive if you need to.
I can actually talk on that too. I had a portion of my personal statement that I actually talked about some bad grades here and there in my application. And mine, it was actually because of the part-time job that I did have. I worked nights, Monday through Friday at the post office. So the second I got done with class, I worked until like 10, 11 p.m. every night. And I actually, my way of turning it into a positive was actually that, you know, I owned up to the mistakes and said that I could have done better also. And I said that, and once I got to dental school, I knew that I would have all my time to fully devote to school alone. And it would be the first time in my life that I ever had the opportunity to do that and not have a job. And I don't know exactly how I worded it, but I basically said that I was like excited to be able to prove to whichever school I got into, that I could do that and that I could overcome that. So there are ways of like spinning it into a positive too.
Great. So the next question is a little related. You said you worked at a post office, and someone's asking, so in terms of work experience, should they leave out bartending because it isn't dental related?
Definitely leave it. It's good. Any job, I didn't talk about in my personal statement. I've worked at a Taco Bell. I've worked on a farm. I've worked as an Uber driver. I've worked as many different weird things. There's nothing that you should be ashamed to put on your application. If it's a bartender, then that's you're working in a high stress environment and you're dealing with people. Any job experience is good. You guys can weigh in on this too with the jobs that you've had, even if they're not dental related.
And I agree with Rob. I've actually worked many different jobs as well. I've waited tables. I actually was a bartender, and I was manager of Abercrombie for over a year. I worked at an optometrist's office. The thing is, they actually love that. That shows that you're a very well-rounded individual, and then it shows that being a bartender, that's a very social yet stressful job or career to have. I mean, it's not a long-term career, but it's a long-term for some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, it shows that you're very versatile and you can handle yourself in such a stressful environment. And, me being a second year and about to transition into clinic, I heard that like in clinic, having jobs like that, like it really helps. It helps because clinic is more than just academics. So I would definitely leave that on your application.
The next question is, any advice for an international dentist applying after 10 years as a dental hygienist? Which I know none of you are in that situation, but if any of you, have friends or classmates or...
Actually talk on that. So I actually have had a couple of people that I've interviewed in my time student interviewing this past year that kind of, I didn't interview anybody that was foreign trained dentist, but I did interview people who kind of had another career and decided to come back after a while of working. And I actually think that that really can only help you. You have a lot of experience. You have a lot of things to talk about. You've worked in the field of dentistry for a really long time. So I think when it comes to interviewing and personal statement, your application will be really strong. I know that it is a little tougher to get in. You have to find some of those kind of advanced standing programs, but just keep trying and good luck.
So the next one is, if you are reapplying and you feel very attached to your original personal statement, what can you do about that? The person says they know that they need to change their personal statement each time they apply.
I can actually take that question on because I applied to dental school twice and I kind of recycled my first personal statement. There's nothing wrong with like using parts of your first personal statement that you submitted for dental school, because I mean, like, I think the reason why you want to do dentistry shouldn't have changed, you know? So I would definitely keep the main components, but then obviously, you know, you have a word limit. So for me, I just went ahead and spoke about what I did the past year between my gap year, which was work in a dental office, and worked for an optometrist as well. So just talk about that and how, you know, you like that helped you like with your gap year and still wanted you to pursue dentistry. Yep, and I think
Okay.
that's it.
All right, thank you. What are your thoughts on tailoring your personal statement to a specific school? Or should you keep it more general?
Well, I think because since we use that one, the ASDA portal, it would be, if you really want to go to a specific school, I would, but I wouldn't be too specific because that might weed your chances out with other schools, you know, because the thing is you want to cast your net wide when applying to dental school because it is very, very hard to get in. So I would say don't really tailor it to a specific school. Like don't mention a school in there because that would deter the other schools from actually like giving your application a chance.
Yeah, Robert, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and obviously never use the name of the specific school in the personal statement because it does go to all of them. But if you really have all your eggs in, you shouldn't have all your eggs in one basket because Aries, right, it's a competitive process and you may not get to where you want to be. But if the school has a mission or a philosophy, kind of like what Sarah was mentioning for UNE, you can really hone the personal statement into that. If you really, the school is really community service oriented and focused on helping the Northern New England rural population. Like if you did volunteering in that, you want to go to UNE, if you play that up and talk about that experience, that will help you. I did it in terms of, I mentioned giving back to the greater Hartford community. I had 1 year gap year, but most of my life I've lived in Connecticut. I'm very proud to be from here. UConn was a far and away first choice. I didn't want to go anywhere else that's right near where I grew up. It was a perfect fit for me, so I really tried to, without using the words, I want to go to UConn in my personal statement, I hammered home things that I knew they would appreciate. And it may be tougher for you guys to do that if you don't have a good idea of what that school is looking for. But Sarah mentioned what they're looking for UNE. So if you want to go to UNE, that's a good idea. If you have any questions about any of our 3 schools, we can maybe help you with that. But Aries' advice was pretty good. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but if you really think that you want to go somewhere, you can kind of tailor it to that.
I think you're muted, Sarah.
Sorry. I was just saying I actually did that for some of mine too. It wasn't specifically for one school, but a lot of the schools I applied to did kind of talk about the same things in their mission statement and their visions for the school. Like, so for example, I'm from a small town in Wisconsin, and Marquette and UNE both talk about rural health and access to care in rural settings and have programs that send students out into those kinds of areas. And it's something that was really important to me and kind of part of my career goals. So I did talk about that in my personal statement. So I was catering it to my top 2 schools, and it is something that I am really passionate about too. So definitely don't throw something in your personal statement just because you think it's going to get you an interview, because if they ask you about it in your interview and you can't talk about that at all, it's not going to look very good for you.
Great. Next question is, was it hard to strike a balance between writing a narrative and being too straightforward with your dental school motivations? So how did you do it?
That's actually a very good question. That was the issue I had. Mine was more of a story at first because, you know, I told you earlier that, you know, I had that experience when I was in the 7th grade with the broken talon cusp and I had to get a root canal. So I kind of focused on that way too much. So what I did was I opened up, because, you know, it's always good, like, you know, writing a paper or even giving a speech to start with a story, because it will keep the audience engaged, or it could deter them, but depending on what kind of story you give. But definitely start out with a story, but then later I would definitely like change my tone a little bit and be and kind of talk about your reasons on, you know, like, if you had any difficulties, definitely address that. And you would, I don't know, it's kind of, you can't make it like a bullet point. You have to make it a smooth transition. But if you're not the best writer, I would just go ahead and write that, and then get whoever you know is the best writer that you know to edit it and make it sound more smooth. So I think that, like, if you have that issue, it's good to have other people edit, and especially good writers that you know, and it wouldn't be such of a big issue.
Okay, thank you. The next was, how did the brainstorming process go for you? So how did you come up with your first draft, since it's probably the most exhaustive process? So I guess really, like, how did you kind of get started on that first draft?
If you have a pre-health advisor, you could go over your resume with them and see if you're the kind of person who doesn't have a really home run experience to talk about. Because if you do, if you know it, and a lot of people will have that and be able to run with it. If you don't feel like you do, go to someone who's gotten into dental school, or an advisor, or someone who you think is an authority on the subject, or at least more so than you are. Be like, which one of these experiences in my life do you think is most amenable to the personal statement? And that can kind of help you out, because I was kind of running in circles. I wrote one that my pre-health advisor said was trash, told me to start over, and said, why don't you write about this instead? And that was great, because I was able to write about that instead, and it was a good starting point. So you're right, brainstorming can be a big, important process. If anybody here is a UConn undergrad, Abbott is very good. Dr. Abbott's very good about helping out with that. So he can kind of guide you in the right direction of what to start with. So if you feel like you're running in circles and brainstorming and coming up with 10 million ideas, ask someone. And if maybe someone really thinks, oh, you could really run with this way, and it'll be easy for you to do that, because you could write about a bunch of different things if you don't have one really big story.
Okay. Next question is it better to make the personal statement short or rather long?
I would say short and concise. Really, whatever your top story or top things that you want the committee to know about you, hit them hard, but don't say too many words to say what you need to say, because they're reading a lot of them. And if yours is really long and they are just reading and reading and reading, it's easy to forget kind of what your main points were if it's just rambling on about a bunch of things on your resume. So keep it short and sweet, let them get to know you, and put in why you think that you're going to be a great dentist and why you want to pursue a career in dentistry.
Great. So there's a couple questions about how long it took. So when should you start your personal statement, and approximately how long did the whole process take you?
For me, it took about a month. I I made an outline, and then of course I made the initial draft, which wasn't very good. But writing is it's a learning process as well. Especially if you're not the greatest writer like me. So yeah, I think a lot of people, when they do first write, they're just like, oh, well, dental schools want to hear this, they want to hear that, but you shouldn't. You should try to find your voice. And I know sometimes it's really hard, and it's good to, definitely brainstorm on what you want to write about. And then if you're having a hard time, like, definitely going to like the career center at your school to get, input on what you should write about would be very beneficial. But yeah, definitely a month. And then, they'll give you enough like time to really I don't think that's as stressful as like saying, oh, you have to write it in a week, 1 month I think is a perfect time, because then it'll give you enough chance to get it edited by numerous people. And then by the time you submit it, you'll feel more confident about it.
With anything in the application process too, I would say start early. I know it seems like the ASDA application opening is a long time from now, but it's really only a couple months. So if you're not super stressed on things right now, write a draft now and let it sit and wait a while and open it up again and see if you feel any differently about the things that you wrote.
next question is, could you give more information about how to ask for feedback and how you incorporated feedback into your personal statement drafts?
As far as how to ask, I wouldn't, if you don't have a good relationship with your pre-health advisor or pre-dental, whatever, try to get one now ahead of time so that when you ask, it's not like you feel like you're cold calling someone. Anybody else who you ask, I feel like should be someone that you could easily give a phone call or a text to, someone who's close enough to you, who they know you well enough where it's not like you're reaching out and being in imposition. Kind of backtracking to what you were saying before in terms of when to start, kind of tying into this as well. Keep in mind that if you go to a school with 25, 30,000 people, you're not unique in the sense that you need help with your personal statement, and you need to respect the advisor's time and make sure that you're not, like Madison's a big school. I don't know where Aaron went to undergrad, but if it's a big, like you guys know that at a big school, you need to be proactive and make sure you give the person enough time in advance to be like, could you please help me with this? Could we set up a meeting maybe next week so you come prepared and don't make them spend any more time than they need to. So in terms of incorporating feedback, somebody else can answer that. But I just wanted to, in terms of asking, make sure that you're being respectful of the advisor's time. And if it's somebody else, make sure it's someone else you know pretty well, so you just shoot them a text.
So Rob, you had mentioned that they should talk about the flaws in their grades, but this person's wondering, should they mention it in their personal statement, or is that a red flag and they will reject you right away without giving you a chance to explain it further?
I personally did not write about mine. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to write about it, because if you just think about it logically, they're going to see it anyway. So if there's no way that if you have something that you're that worried about on your application that it's not going to be seen if you don't put it in your personal statement. So you putting it in your personal statement, it could draw attention to it, but it's not like they're going to miss it otherwise. So I don't think that you should avoid it for the sake of, oh my God, if they see that I got this and I'm talking about it, they're going to reject me, because they're going to see it anyway. It can only help if you explained a struggle that you had in a concise, mature, taking responsibility manner. So I don't think you should exclude it for the sake of trying to hide it, because they're going to see it anyway.
And yeah, I agree with Rob. So like my GPA wasn't the greatest either, and I know I didn't mention it earlier, but definitely address it, but don't linger on it. Don't harp on it. Don't talk about it for like paragraphs and paragraphs. Just address it and why like why the GPA was low, but then talk about something else afterwards. Don't talk about it for, paragraphs and paragraphs, because they're going to get sick of hearing about that.
So this person says they don't have a pre-health advising or a career center, so they're wanting to know what you would recommend to do before they start writing their personal statement. Anyone else that they could work with, or?
I would say definitely. Oh,
sorry.
You can go
ahead. Sarah. Sorry.
No, you go.
Okay. You can definitely reach out to maybe your dentist. Like if you work for a dentist or shadowed a dentist, reach out to your dentist, because I mean they're a dentist, so who's better not to ask for advice on like applying to dental school as well as writing your personal statement.
I mean, I know there are services out there that will help you. I mean, of course, they cost money, and I don't know anything about how valuable they are, but I guess if you really had nowhere to go, I know there are companies that can help with that. Robert?
Don't pay anybody. Email one of us three. We're busy, but I would rather read it and save you whatever they're ripping you off for than you actually giving your money to a company. Please don't do that.
Definitely.
All right, good advice.
Yeah, and I mean, you're registered for ASDA and you're on this, so you definitely have contact information for the pre-dental committee from ASDA. So reach out to any of them or any of us. And then also, if your university doesn't have specifically a pre-health center, they likely have some sort of a writing center or something too, usually.
So I think we have time for one more. So someone's asking, what are some common do's and don'ts regarding the personal statement? So maybe if each of you want to give kind of like one do, one don't of a personal statement from your experience. Robert?
I think I went over all the do's, and they're kind of the same as what the other two panels were saying, because it's all the same advice in that regard. But I think a big don't is don't lie. I don't know why anybody would be possessed to do that in the first place, but if you're trying to fabricate something that's inconsistent with what you've actually done, you're going to be visibly nervous, and you're going to be not able to talk about it passionately, and go with what you have instead of feeling insecure enough to drive you to do something that's not right. If it does work, then you got into dental school over people who deserve it more, and more likely than not, it wouldn't work. So I don't want anybody to ever think that it's so serious that they would need to get it to that point. Just be honest, know yourself and know what you've done, and be confident in your personal statement. You all have the ability to write about something that may not be super unique or super interesting or super cool, but you all have the ability to make it into a reason you get into dental school. So I don't want anybody to think that they should be trying to pull something out of thin air.
I would say a major don't is don't plagiarize. I know a lot of people, like, they read through sample essays like on Student Doctor Network, and on Google you'll just be like dental school personal statement, and there'll be a lot of samples out there for you to read, and you're like, wow, this sounds great, like maybe I can like take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Do not do that. Just I guess this is the do. Just be honest. I know I said this earlier. You're telling your story, and everyone is very idiosyncratic, and everyone has a beautiful story to tell, whether you may think it's it is or not, but you do. It's just how you write it as well. So that's why you have different people editing your paper for you.
And I would say my don't is don't pretend you're a dentist already and try to use a bunch of like crazy dental lingo that you might not even understand yet. I definitely thought I knew a lot more about dentistry than I did before I started. So just really stick to what you know. Use it as a time to have them get to know you, and not a time to show how much you think you already know about being a dentist.
Very good advice. So we don't have time to get to the rest of the questions, and I see that many of the questions are actually not really related to personal statement, but other areas like what to do in a gap year and DAP scores and things like that. And so the presenter, their emails are up there if you wanted to reach out to them. I'd also suggest ASDA does a lot of different webinars on various topics. So for example, in April, we are holding our National DAT Week, which is April 16th through the 20th, and we're holding 3 webinars on the DAT that week. So one of them will be the American Dental Association, who administers the DAT. Someone in their testing department will be presenting on their advice and tips for the DAT. And then we'll be doing one specifically on the PAT and one on the quantitative reasoning and science, where you'll get to do some live questions that they'll walk through. So anyway, I would suggest you look at some of the other webinars for some of these other topics, or contact the presenters that are up there. So Hillary, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close. I think you're muted. Oh, still muted. Hillary, you're still muted for some reason.
I'll take this little pause break to say happy birthday to Aries.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks for
Thank you.
celebrating your birthday with us.
Well, technically, it's not my birthday because I'm a leap year baby. I was born on February 29th, so my real birthday is until 2020.
That's
I know,
nice.
I have such
You only age every 4 years.
All right, my little brother's a leap baby too.
Oh, really?
All right.
Yep, 96. So he doesn't have a birthday yet either.
That's awesome. Fellow leap year babies.
All right, Hillary, are
Sorry,
you
sorry.
there? We go.
Yeah, I'm good to go. You still have the PowerPoint pulled up because we have one more slide at the very end.
Wait, is this I thought I stopped sharing the screen. Okay, I don't know how to share it again.
For some reason, I don't see you listed as an option, so the screen must still be yours.
Are y'all seeing anything or no?
No, there's a button that says show my screen.
Let me see.
Here, I'll change it back to me and then back to you. Maybe that'll work. There we go. Now I'm turning it back to you.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
That's okay. There we go.
Yeah, so sorry about that, guys. So we hoped you really enjoyed our webinar tonight. And if you're interested in attending more of our ASDA webinars to learn more about different aspects of the dental application process and meet new dental students, feel free. ASDA has many webinars throughout the year. And actually tomorrow, we're hosting a webinar about ASDA 101. So what is ASDA as an organization to pre-dental students? Like, what does it mean to be involved in organized dentistry? We hope that you might be interested, and if you want to sign up, the link is in our Facebook page and on our website. So we'll hopefully see you then. But thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope you learned a lot.
Thank you.